right, moving on to week 4. Wow, sorry, week 4 in college football. It's flying by. We got through all the majority of the out of conference games. We're going into conference games now for the majority of the teams throughout here. Wow, it was another interesting week. I mean, you had Penn State blowing out Auburn. I had that happening, but a lot of people were surprised that it wasn't close. But I mean, I wasn't shocked by it. I mean, Penn State's just such a better team, much better team than Auburn. And then, gosh, what were the other games? I mean, you had Texas struggling against UTSA. That was. I thought that was going to happen. I mean, they just came off an emotional loss with Alabama by 1 point, but I mean, they pulled away and they won by a few scores, so good for them. And then UCLA barely hangs on and wins. I mean, they start out 3-0 like I thought they would. They're a good team. A lot of people aren't paying attention to them, but they'll keep rolling along, I think. There's a lot of other teams. I mean, you have Michigan State losing to Washington, which that was the one game I did not see coming. I mean, I didn't think Washington was going to be very good this year. I'm pleasantly surprised by them, which I think they can be a contender in the Pac-12 this year. And USC, Utah, UCLA. I mean, these are in Oregon. Some good contenders in the Pac-12. And a lot of these teams have looked really good. I mean, I didn't think that Oklahoma would blow out Nebraska like they did. That was impressive. I thought it would be a closer game than what it was, and I thought they would get tested here. That didn't happen. Oklahoma absolutely blew them out. No contest there. Good for Oklahoma. Moving on to their next game against Kansas State, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Let's go ahead and dive right into these. I went 9-1 in my picks last week. I think the only one I got wrong was the Washington and Michigan State one. Let's go ahead and move on to these games for this week. We've got Maryland versus Michigan. A lot of people have Michigan on upset alert in this one, which I understand Maryland has a good offense, but I don't think they have the defense to contain Michigan's offense in this. I think Michigan is just such a better team, much better team than Maryland is. I do think Maryland will put up some yards and some points in this one, but it's not going to be nearly enough to beat Michigan at home. Michigan is just a whole different animal from what they played, and I think Michigan is one of the better teams this year, and I think they put it on Maryland. I think they win by quite a few scores in this one. Next game is Baylor at Iowa State. This is an interesting one. You've already had Baylor lose one game at BYU. It's not a bad loss. BYU is a pretty decent team. Baylor is still good, contrary to what people think. Iowa State is a good team too. I think they're better than last year, honestly. I think Iowa State had a lot of high expectations last year, and that was their own downfall. They beat Iowa this year. I mean, that's something that they haven't done in a while. So good for them. I think Iowa State's a pretty good team, and I think Iowa State is going to upset Baylor at home. I don't know why I just have a gut feeling that they're going to do it. I was picking Baylor at first, but I don't know why. Something's telling me to pick Iowa State, so I'm going to roll with the Cyclones in this one in an upset game. Iowa State usually gets one upset every year, and I think this is one of them they're going to get. Then you have a very interesting game of Duke versus Kansas. I mean, who thought we'd be talking about this game? Basketball schools undefeated in football. I mean, they've been terrible for a while, both of these programs. So it's good to see them doing good in football. Kansas hasn't been good since Mark Mangino was there and took them to the Orange Bowl. And Duke was good back in 2013, I think, when they went to the ACC championship game. So they had a good season then. That was the last time for them. But Kansas, I did some research on their coach, and he's a pretty good coach. I didn't know anything about him until I did a little research on him. So I think Kansas is going to win this game and go 4-0, which is crazy to talk about. They're receiving votes to be in the top 25, which is insane. Who would have thought that we'd be talking about that this year? But yeah, I've got the Jayhawks winning. Next game is Florida versus Tennessee. Florida has not impressed me at all this year. I mean, they had a decent win against Utah, but I think Utah won that game nervous, and it was the first game. It was at the Swamp, and I don't know why. I think it was kind of a fluke. Florida is not good. Tennessee is a lot better than Florida, and I think Tennessee they have a chance to blow out Florida. I think they win by a couple of scores, and they could win by more. I just think they're just so much better than Florida, in my opinion. So, sorry, Gator fans. Next game is Texas at Texas Tech. I think this would have been an interesting game had Texas Tech's quarterback not went down for an injury. Texas is pretty good. They have a good defense. I think they are a legit contender in the Big 12 this year. If when Quinn Ewers comes back, they're going to be hitting on all strides, I think. But Texas Tech is going to give them, I think, a challenge at home in Lubbock. But in the end, I think Texas prevails. This could be a close game just because both teams have injuries. I mean, both starting quarterbacks are out for both these teams. But I have more faith in Texas to win this game than Texas Tech. Moving on, Notre Dame versus North Carolina. Originally, I had Notre Dame winning this game before the season started, but my opinion on Notre Dame has completely changed, obviously. I mean, they just aren't that good. North Carolina has a terrible defense, one of the worst I've ever seen, but they have a very good offense, and I just think Notre Dame is not going to be able to keep up with the scoring in this one. I don't care how good their defense is; they don't have an offense. So North Carolina outscores them and wins the game, in my opinion. Next game is Minnesota at Michigan State. Michigan State was looking pretty decent up until they lost at Washington and got embarrassed. Minnesota has been rolling along. They've looked pretty okay. And I think Minnesota walks into Spartan Stadium, and I think they hand Michigan State their second loss. I think Minnesota is a under-the-radar, sneaky good team, and a lot of people are not paying attention to, which I think that will change after this week. I think they're going to be ranked after this, and Michigan State will probably fall out of the top 25 after this loss. So I think that's what's going to happen. Next game, this is the hardest game I had to pick, is Arkansas versus Texas A&M. I picked Arkansas to win this game in the offseason, and I'm going to stick with that pick and pick Arkansas to win this game. Texas A&M has a good defense, but they have no offense. They're probably the worst in the SEC, possibly. I think Vanderbilt might even have a better offense. Arkansas that was not impressive last week, but they could have been looking forward to this game and not looking much at Missouri State. So I think Arkansas bounces back and wins this game. Next game is Wisconsin versus Ohio State. I don't think that Wisconsin can keep up with Ohio State in this game. They don't have an offense to do it. I think Ohio State's going to blow out Wisconsin. I don't think this is very close at all. I understand Wisconsin has a good running game like always, but Wisconsin can't keep up with Ohio State most games that they play in. They'll do good in the first quarter, and then after that, Ohio State always takes over and they blow them out. But anyways, I've got the Buckeyes winning it, and it's going to be big. Last game is Kansas State at Oklahoma. I had this as a possible upset game for Oklahoma. I can't remember if I picked them in the win or not. I might have picked Kansas State to win this game in the offseason. Well, no, I didn't. I picked Oklahoma to win. That's right. I had this as a possible upset game, but after watching Oklahoma and Kansas State last weekend, I've got to pick Oklahoma at home. I mean, they've looked very impressive, blowing out Nebraska like they did, and Kansas State losing to Tulane is inexcusable. I know Tulane is a tough team, but Kansas State should not lose to Tulane at home. It just shouldn't happen. But yeah, I think Oklahoma wins by a couple scores in this one. I think Deuce Vaughn is gonna get his yards and points, but that's all Kansas State's gonna have. All right, those are my picks for Week 4. Wow, season's going along pretty fast. We're already in conference games. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good day.